There have been some serious allegations made towards Red Bull and Aston Martin as they are now currently under investigation for going over the spending budget in 2021. This could have major repercussions on both Max Verstappen and his team, as he could potentially be stripped of his world title. On top of this, we also have a comment from Charles Leclerc exclaiming about when he realized he wasn't going to win the championship. Let's get right into it. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Formula One Digest. I'm your host, Tyson De Silva. I'm joined by my co-host, Mark. And today we're going to be talking about something that has been trending in the F1 world, and that is the FIA's investigation into Red Bull and Aston Martin. Mark, why don't you give us a bit of an overview of what's been happening?
So it's not just the FIA's investigation into just Red Bull and Aston Martin. All of the teams had to submit their spending for last year. And with these new cost cap rules, they'll have to keep sending in all of their spending throughout an F1 season. But allegations have been made, as we've mentioned, against Red Bull and Aston Martin by some teams. I'm not going to name names because that would just be cruel. Mercedes has actually said, Toto Wolff has said that Red Bull, it was an open secret that they overspent in the 2021 season. And as well, someone, I guess, leaked the information that Aston Martin has overspent. So these two teams are under a bit of a tighter magnifying glass by the FIA, and we'll have more information in the coming week as to whether or not they overspent a large amount or they overspent, within the acceptable margin, which I think is about $5 million, which in the grand scheme of things could not necessarily make or break something, but could change the complexion of a championship, apparently.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think that, yeah, it's definitely a hard place to be in if you're a Formula One fan, especially if you're especially if your team is like in the middle of all the allegations made. And I think that it's going to be really interesting to see what the FIA comes out with and what they say for their results on, I think it's Monday that they're releasing it. So I do think that we are going to get a team that overspent. I don't know. I'm not going to say who I think it is. I'm going to hold off in case I'm wrong. But I do have a feeling that there were teams that overspent last year, and that did show in their performance. I think it's really interesting, too, to see how people in the F1 paddock have reacted to it, because you have Toto Wolff, who has made a couple of comments, and Christian Horner, who has now who kind of did a bit of a hit back and saying that Wolff is making unfounded claims. I don't know. I think I'm all for it because the drama is just so funny, especially when it's Christian Horner and Toto Wolff, because those two are like Rocky and Apollo. They just go at each other. It's really funny, but yeah, no, this could lead to some serious repercussions. Of course, something we've talked about is Max Verstappen could potentially get points deducted from his 2021 campaign. And if they deduct enough of the points from last year, he could potentially be stripped of his title from last year, which was already a controversial one because of how he got it, which was no really real fault of his own. It was one of the FIA employees, but yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting to see what the FIA does to, kind of make amends with everything.
Yeah, exactly. It's interesting now, like while we're in this cost cap era of F1, Mercedes pre cost cap, they were spending hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars more than some teams on the F1 grid. Like compared to Red Bull in their 7 consecutive constructors championships, Mercedes was spending like, I want to say something crazy, like 10 times more than what Red Bull and Ferrari were spending. So it's really difficult for me to see why a team like Mercedes would be be making allegations of this when they had such a competitive advantage against every other team before this cost cap era. And now we see them not even performing up to standards that we're used to seeing Mercedes perform at. Like last weekend, Lewis barely made it out of the top 10, and he had a crash, very uncharacteristic of Lewis Hamilton, 7-time world champion. Like, it's so strange for me as an F1 fan to see someone like Mercedes, a team like Ferrari, make allegations against a team that was basically at zero in Red Bull and, now a dominating force in the sport. And, it could even come to legal ramifications for Mercedes and Red Bull. I would think or hope that Christian Horner has a team of lawyers that would want to take Toto to Wolf, Toto to court, Toto to Wolf, Toto to court over this defamation against their team. It is technically a defamation case there for against Toto Wolff and Red Bull. I mean, they said there's an unfounded claim so far that they overspent, and who knows? I would hope that he takes them to court over this if it turns out not to be true.
We've already seen a big defamation case this past year, of course, with Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. This would be the sequel, the F1 version, where Christian Horner and Toto Wolff go head to head, not just on the paddock or on the racing track, but also in the court. It would be really interesting to see, though, because that's definitely like an option if Red Bull wanted to pursue it. I don't know if they would. Unless Toto says something that's really out of line. I'm not even sure what he said to be honest, but I just think that when you can't be making those accusations, especially when you're a team that, like you said, spent millions and millions of dollars and you were so successful. And then, this year you had Lewis Hamilton in Imola stuck behind Pierre Gasly and Alex Albon for most of the race. Yeah, personally, if I'm Toe Wolf, or if I'm one of those guys who are on the end of it, I'm not saying anything because, again, that's just weird, man.
Yeah, it's very unsportsmanlike too, and not even to say it's unsportsmanlike. It's also a bit of insider knowledge within the F1 paddock getting tossed around, and that's
snitch.
yeah, really. And that's how rumors get started. How would you feel if you were at work and you had your coworkers start a rumor about you? You wouldn't feel too good. And if it was unfounded, you'd feel even worse,
Yeah, exactly. I think you also made the point that why would Red Bull in their first season, where they were competitive against the Mercedes, why would they risk overspending and getting in trouble for it? It just doesn't make sense. And you made that point a little earlier when we were talking before recording, and I think that you're absolutely right, because I just think that when you look at the position that Red Bull was in, they're in no position to let anyone get in trouble, because they were the underdogs of that year. Now they're at their prime, I guess. They've reached their ceiling. They're the best, right? Like, as of right now. So yeah, there's a lot of question marks, I think, as to why Red Bull's being accused of it. I am looking forward to seeing what the results say. But I guess we'll just have to wait until after the race weekend.
Yep, that's for sure. And I'm not that excited to see what comes out. I'm sure that it'll be big news. And I'm positive that it's going to be at least one team that does overspend uh, in whatever situation it is.
Yeah. So I guess we're just gonna, yeah, definitely. I think we're gonna have to wait until after the race weekend. So we do have a race weekend still, folks. We're in Japan. We are back, and for the free practice 1 and 2 happened over the course of last night for us, and we did get to watch FP1, and we had Mick Schumacher, who uh, is just fighting for his F1 career right now. He's fighting to stay in F1 and get a seat either with Haas or with Alpine or even with Williams. And he's not really helping his case when he's crashing out in FP1. And Guenther Steiner, Captain Guenther, he had a comment to make, and he basically said that in the end, his crash was self-inflicted. There was spray, there was water, and you know that, but yeah, he basically just said that Mick's crash was self-inflicted, and I think that kind of speaks to where Mick and Gunther's relationship has kind of gone. I think that Mick is not going to return to Haas next year. What are your thoughts, Mark?
Yeah, I don't think he's going to return to Haas either. With him severing ties with the Ferrari Junior Academy, I think it's time for Mick to go somewhere else. I've said this in other videos before. I know I would love to see him in a Ferrari, following his father's footsteps, but like he's been doing his entire career, he wants to make a name of it for himself, and he kind of wants to create his own legacy. And I think that's what he needs to start doing and focusing on a bit more. Uh, if it means taking a year off from F1, like Daniel Ricciardo might have to, he should do that. If it means moving to a different team, I right now I don't really know which team he'd go to. I think it would more than likely be a Williams if he goes anywhere uh, with a seat that's open. And, that might be a bit of a step back, or depending on the trajectory that Williams is going on, it could look like a good move and could even move him up into the Mercedes ladder, another team that his father did race with. So I hope he makes the right decision, and I'm sure he will. He has a great team behind him, and he has a lot of support with his family. But I really want to see Mick on the grid at some point. It doesn't have to be next year, but it would be best if it was.
Yeah, definitely. I think that he's still a guy who's young and has a lot of he still has the potential to be a good driver in F1, but he needs to be um more consistent because he's been up and down this entire season. You know, Kevin Magnussen's done some has also been up and down, but I feel like with him he's been a bit more consistent. So yeah, I just think that Mick needs to maybe take a year or just get his mind right and just train more, and then maybe come back to the grid. Maybe when Audi and what's the other team?
Porsche.
Yeah, and Porsche joined the sport. I don't know if I have to wait that long because that's still like a couple of years away, but I'm sure that Mick is going to get another opportunity in F1 because he's too talented to not be in F1. And speaking of talent in F1, Mark, we have Charles Leclerc, who's, of course, an up and coming driver. He's definitely got the capability to be a future world championship, but right now he is mathematically out if he doesn't win this race. I think there needs to be some sort of combination for him to still be in this championship. And we actually got a very candid quote from Charles about when he realized he wasn't going to win the F1 title. And he said that it was after the race in the Belgian Grand Prix. He still believed in the title during the summer break, but then after coming back and going to Belgium and racing, he realized that, Red Bull right now was at the top of their game and his chances were just slimmer and slimmer every time. He's still not mathematically out. He still has this weekend to kind of make a push, but I think that, we've all come to the agreement that Max Verstappen is going to take this championship one way or another. And with 5 more races left, this means that Leclerc has 5 more races to, get his laps in and just make sure that he can be as well prepared as he can be for next season. Do you think that Charles is being too defeatist at that point, saying that he was out by Belgium, or do you think that that was a reasonable time to kind of lower his expectations?
No, I think it's a bit he's a bit down on himself, and I think he should give himself a little bit more credit. I personally am a fan of Max and Red Bull, and I'm a fan of Charles. I think they're both great drivers, but you know, Red Bull and Max could start making the same kind of mistakes that Ferrari were. I mean, I think the strategy side is mostly where Charles is thinking or is having these thoughts from. And uh, Max and Red Bull, for the most part, were being flawless throughout that section of the season. So, like, yes, he's kind of right, but I think he's being a little bit too hard on himself. And maybe he should give himself a little bit more credit, you know?
Oh, definitely. He definitely was making a statement at the start of the year, and I think that he still is going to be a world champion eventually. I think he's definitely going to make a case for himself next year as well. But I just think that Ferrari made too many mistakes throughout the season, and as a result, you have Max Verstappen almost over 100 points right now on them, and Max. You also got to give credit to Max because Max pushed that car, especially when he was down, especially in like Hungary and Belgium, where he was 14th, and then he won the race, and then when he was 10th in Hungary, and then still won the race. I think and he spun in Hungary, so there's a lot of stuff that didn't go Charles's way, but I think that he still had a good chance up until maybe Monza. After Monza, I don't think he had much of a chance after that.
No. Well, I'd like to see what happens in the rest of the season. Max did seem to be on a little bit of the back foot in Singapore, and he made that mistake, locking up, trying to make an overtake against Lando Norris. Could this be the unraveling of his season?
No, I don't think so. He's got ice water in his veins. It's just that Singapore was too hot.
Yeah, I'm just trying to throw some shade,
All good. It's all good. But yeah, no, so we're gonna be watching the rest of this weekend. Probably not the qualifying because it's at 2 in the morning, but definitely the race. So we're gonna definitely be doing some coverage over the weekend. So if you guys have made it this far, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share with your friends. We appreciate all the support that we get, and we will see you guys in the next one.